Oh, baby. The San Francisco 49ers just signed Robert Saleh late last night to be the defensive coordinator, and I could not be more excited. This means the 49ers are not only winning the division in 2025, but they are winning the Super Bowl. Get ready, NFC West. I'm just joking. It is a really, really good pickup, though. I absolutely love it. Here's my thing. My whole thought process throughout this whole thing, all the ups, the downs, the ebbs, the flows, was simply I wanted a bit of a philosophy change, which meant Robert Saleh would not be a good fit for what I was requesting. However, I know Kyle Shanahan very well, and I know that he wants to stick with what he trusts. And for that reason, it was clear that Robert Saleh was always the best choice. So, him being here is absolutely perfect. And what I like most about it is all of the responsibility that they're giving him. They're just saying, hey, you take it, you run with it. It's your defense. You're essentially the head coach, but of the defensive side of the ball. And for me, Kyle Shanahan, I feel like that's where he falls a little bit short as a head coach, is he really looks at it almost as if he's the offensive coordinator. When you ask him about things, he breaks things down and big picture items down into singular plays of a game. That is not his strong suit. And that's okay. It doesn't mean he's not a good coach, doesn't mean he's not a good head coach, doesn't mean he's not a very good play designer and play caller, that's for sure. But he needs somebody on the defensive side of the ball and special teams, by the way, that he can just say, here, take it, you run with it. And that has been lacking since D'Amico Ryans left. Remember, Robert Saleh was here, then D'Amico took over, and it was all good when those guys were here. Check out the sponsor of today's video, Underdog. Link is in the description. Promo code LSS. That'll get you a deposit match, 50% up to $1,000 plus one free play. Underdog has so many options to have fun, put a little skin in the game. You can do more or lesses. You can do weekly fantasy. You can do daily fantasy, yearly fantasy, and multiple sports to choose from: basketball, football, baseball, MMA. The list goes on and on. Have a little bit of fun with Underdog. They've been a great sponsor all year long. But when Steve Wilkes was here, he was asked to run a system that was not his. He was asked to run what Kyle Shanahan wanted to run. And because of that, there was some hiccups. And when those hiccups came, it was very clear that Kyle Shanahan was no longer comfortable with him just running the defense. So he had to start focusing in on the defensive side of the ball way more than he probably wanted to. And I think that that took his focus away from big time moments and big time games, and it caused the 49ers some issues. So Steve Wilkes is out. They bring in Sorensen, who's supposed to be, he was on the staff. The team loves him, but he was a first time defensive coordinator, which means Kyle had to hold his hand as well. That is no longer the case. Robert Saleh will come in. He knows this roster, a lot of this roster, anyways. He knows Kyle Shanahan and how he operates, and Kyle can fully trust him. Fully trust him. And that is the biggest thing here. Now, does this mean that everything is fixed and they're good to go? Just run it back, same roster, 2025, playoffs, Super Bowl? All no, it doesn't mean any of that. But all you can do is take care of what's in front of you. And what's in front of them before free agency starts, before the draft starts, is getting this staff fully put together. And I can't think of a better person and coach than Robert Saleh to step to the plate and run the show. And the fact that he's given full autonomy to, it sounds like he's going to have influence in the draft and the guys that they take on the defensive side of the football. Players that they sign through free agency will be heavily weighted by what Robert Saleh thinks. So I would expect some ex 49ers / ex Jets to end up with San Francisco, whether that's, I don't know, Kinlaw or Reed, DJ Jones, whoever, Solomon Thomas, even, I don't know. But I would expect that some of those types of players make their way back to the 49ers. And I also think that this does influence Dre Greenlaw staying here. Remember, for Dre Greenlaw, this was his first coach. And I will say this, units are separated a little bit in the NFL. If you're a defensive guy, you spend time with your defensive coordinator more so than you do the head coach. Like, the head coach is the overseer, but he spent more time with Robert Saleh than he ever did Kyle Shanahan. And he spent more times with D'Amico Ryans than he ever did Kyle Shanahan. And that's just the way that the hierarchy works. So knowing that Robert Saleh is here, and that was his introduction to the NFL was Robert Saleh, and I know that he loves Robert Saleh, this really might help the 49ers land Dre Greenlaw for a team-friendly-ish deal. I was worried about him being gone. I'm like, man, they're going to lose Dre Greenlaw. This is going to be a rough patch for them. How are they going to fill in? I mean, Dre Greenlaw, yes, he was coming off the major injury, but it was clear the one game he was able to play, the impact he made, how good he is, what happened in the Super Bowl after he stepped off the field because of that unfortunate injury. He means a lot to this team. But there are other teams that need a linebacker and a good one. And he is all of that. So it's like, well, this team can probably pay more. And that still may be the case, but he might be willing to take a little bit less to stay here with Fred, who's his ride or die, and be coached by Robert Saleh once again, even if it's a prove it deal. So the likelihood of Dre Greenlaw coming back, in my opinion, just got bigger. So I think Robert Saleh's influence goes so far beyond just the defensive side of the ball and just calling plays, which he's going to be great at. He is the heart and soul of this defense. His energy is infectious. It's needed. It's needed because Kyle Shanahan is a bit of a Debbie Downer, if we're just being honest. So he needs a yin to his yang, and that is Robert Saleh. And I also think his presence helps the offense because now Kyle Shanahan feels comfortable enough to be like, you got it. I can fix this offense. And I do think that there are some philosophy things that need to change with Kyle Shanahan in this offense. I think Kyle Shanahan is running into a situation where people are exploiting his offensive rules because they know them at this point, just like Kyle Shanahan used to exploit defensive rules and still does. But instead of exploiting players, which a lot of coaches will do, they'll say, okay, we're going up against this team. They have an injured corner. We're going to go exploit that corner. That's not what Kyle Shanahan does. Kyle Shanahan exploits rules. He says, okay, we're going to run this. If we see cover 2, I know their rule is this. So if we run this route, the linebacker is supposed to drop back 3 yards here. If we run this route, he's supposed to come in a little bit and drop 4 yards. He knows all the rules and he exploits those rules and he does a very good job of it. But that has been flipped on its head to where Kyle Shanahan now has rules getting exploited to his offense. Because what teams are figuring out is, hey, if they're in 3rd and long, they don't really adjust their protections the way that a lot of other teams do. In fact, what they rely on is they rely on the hot read. They got to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands quick. They don't flip their protection to stop this blitz. They use an open route underneath to stop that blitz. But if they're in 3rd and long and we can make them throw 7 yards short of the stick, then we win. So we'll just show them blitz. We'll make them throw hot, and that's that. So he has to make some adjustments. This is not out of the ordinary. All teams get caught up to, all coaches, all schemes. That's why the Seattle Seahawks in their cover 3, one high safety, that's been exploited since the early 2010s in the Legion of Boom. And now everybody's running too high. I mean, this is normal. But Kyle Shanahan can't focus on those things if he doesn't have a Robert Saleh. And I know a lot of people are worried, like, okay, well, listen, Robert Saleh is so good. He's only going to be here a year. What are they going to do? Who cares? Who cares? If he's good enough, if Robert Saleh is good enough to get hired as a head coach during the next cycle, that means this defense returned to dominant form. And if this defense returns to dominant form, the 49ers are making deep runs, period, point blank. So I'm not worried about 2026 at all. I'm worried about 2025. This team is aging. This team's expensive. I've talked about how they needed to move on from a lot of these pieces, but they're never going to do it. So, how do the 49ers have the best chance to compete in 2025? Robert Saleh is how they have the best chance to compete in 2025.